Well, Jackie, just when we thought 2020 couldn't deliver us another bombshell, we have overnight the death of a woman here described as a pioneer and a legend. It is no overestimation to say the life's work of Ruth Bader Ginsburg on women's rights and equality has lent her something of a rock star status here, which is why there are hundreds of people gathered here behind me to mourn the passing of a woman whose determination paved the way not only for her own future at the top of the highest court of the land, but the future of all women across America.
Show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down. Let's go.
In life, Ruth Bader Ginsburg told Americans to fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. Upon hearing news of her death, hundreds of those she inspired came together to say goodbye.
She was the moral beacon when America felt lost to me, and I firmly believe that we would not be where we were today without her.
Of the more than 100 justices who have sat on the United States' highest court, none were quite like her.
I ask no favor for my sex. All I ask of our brethren is that they take their feet off our necks.
The softly spoken judge who became an icon, lifting weights as well as the hopes of liberal Americans well into her 80s. Ginsburg was born to Jewish parents in Brooklyn, her father an immigrant from Ukraine. She studied at Cornell, where she met her future husband, Marty Ginsburg, who would be by her side until his death, a constant champion of her talents.
I became a lawyer because Marty and his parents supported that choice unreservedly.
She went on to study law at Harvard in 1956, where she was the mother of a new child and one of only a handful of women in a class of roughly 500 men.
The thing of it was we never complained. That's just the way things were. But by the late 60s, the feminist movement had revived in the United States as part of a worldwide movement.
Ginsburg helped form the Women's Rights Project at the American Civil Liberties Union. And as the women's liberation movement pushed for change in the streets, Ginsburg led the charge in the courts.
Mrs. Ginsburg.
Facing 9 elderly men on the Supreme Court, the young Ginsburg successfully argued 5 out of 6 gender discrimination cases in the 1970s, changing forever the status of women in the United States.
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court.
I am proud to nominate this path-breaking attorney, advocate, and judge to be the 107th Justice to the United States Supreme Court.
When President Clinton nominated Ginsburg, he called her a moderate and a centrist. She was approved by the Senate 96 votes to 3, bipartisan unity unheard of today. But over the years, as the court filled with conservative Bush and Trump nominees, Ginsburg was the determined liberal voice of dissent, including when her colleagues on the bench handed the presidency to George W. Bush in 2000.
When do we want it? Now!
In her 80s, she won a new generation of fans and a new nickname. That newfound celebrity status would lead to an Oscar-nominated documentary and a Hollywood film.
Differentiate on the basis of sex. Women can't work overtime. We have to get credit cards in our husband's name.
Ginsburg was a defining figure in modern America who leaves a powerful legacy. To those inspired by her victories for women and equality, she is irreplaceable. But to those who want more conservatives on the bench, this is a timely vacancy that will change the shape of the remaining presidential campaign. It already has.
She just died? Wow. I didn't know that. You're telling me now for the first time. She led an amazing life.
And within an hour, the leader of the Republican-controlled Senate, Mitch McConnell, promised to hold a vote for a nominee selected by Donald Trump, setting the stage for an historic and ugly political showdown. Well, viewers may remember it was the same Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell who blocked President Obama from nominating a liberal Supreme Court judge in the last year of his presidency because McConnell said it was too close to the election. It should be up to the new president to decide. And yet here we are, just over 6 weeks to go until November's election, and McConnell is seemingly happy to ditch those principles and to move ahead as quickly as possible to nominate President Trump's nominee, provided, of course, he can get the votes. There are cries of hypocrisy, of course, but the truth is McConnell and the Republicans don't care. They are desperate to replace Ginsburg's liberal seat with and allow the Supreme Court to be dominated by conservative judges. That, of course, will have profound implications potentially for legislation on abortion access, healthcare rights, and the power, of course, of the presidency for a generation. That is why Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dying wish was to have the next president name her successor. And why Donald Trump today has said it is his obligation to press ahead without delay. Not only will it allow him to tilt the Supreme Court in his favour, it will also allow him to change the narrative on the negativity around the coronavirus to talk about the future of America and American rights, which is, of course, the language that will fire up his base potentially ahead of the election in November.
Siobhan, thanks very much. Well, earlier I spoke to Betsy West in New York. She co-directed the Oscar-nominated documentary RBG about the life and work of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I began by asking her how Justice Ginsburg had changed life for women across America.
She was a figure of historic proportions. Really, even if Ruth Bader Ginsburg had never become a Supreme Court justice, she deserves a place in history for what she did to change the world for American women.
What do you think drove her personally to keep going, despite the fact that, like many women in that period, and still now, she faced very many barriers?
You know, I've never met a more determined person. She really did not let setbacks get her down. And she wanted to find a way to make a contribution, as she told us, to do something to help her country. And that, I think, continued to drive her into her work as a Supreme Court justice. And even when she faced significant health setbacks, she just kept going.
Now, we know the Supreme Court justice is an enormously significant role in America, and the timing of her death really is acute. She said not long before she died, "My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed." How likely is that?
Obviously, her death has really unleashed a partisan brawl over succession. And you know, we'll have to see whether or not Mitch McConnell will be able to accomplish what he wants, which is to confirm a conservative justice before the inauguration of a new president or the second term of President Trump.
So what difference do you think would a replacement chosen by President Trump make to America, make to women in America?
It's a very consequential decision. As our Supreme Court has become ever more conservative, the goal is to overturn reproductive rights laws, Roe v. Wade. You know, we'll have to see how this turns out, but it does feel very consequential.
In more recent years, of course, she became a sort of celebrity, you know, known as the Notorious RBG, a sort of cult following among young women. Why do you think that happened so late in her life?
Well, I mean, it was clearly in response to the dissents that she was issuing as the court was becoming more conservative. People responded to the power of her words, and suddenly here's this feisty octogenarian who's really telling truth to power, and the Notorious RBG moniker just took off on the internet, just exploded. And, you know, she, despite how shy and retiring she was, she really got a kick out of it.
And did she remain optimistic, do you think, about America?
She was a very optimistic person. And I think that she saw that change comes slowly and that there are setbacks, but she would often point to the way things were when she was a girl growing up. And she said, you know, look at where we are now. We have changed. And she remained hopeful about that and that the path would continue to go forward.